How you doing? We're going to talk about RedHen today. There's quite a few different, well, we'll do that. My name's Dennis Solis. I've got a whole lot of years development. I went through a training program for Drupal. Had a lot of heavy development in the last 8 months. And I'm also currently in the process of writing the RedHen documentation. There's a lot of documentation out there on RedHen, but you gotta go there, there. So I'm trying to get it all consolidated in one little spot to make life easy. So you go through and figure out how to do it.
Thank you.
Pardon?
Thank you.
Yes, it's been a challenge. You can usually find me on Drupal Florida, and you can find me on Drupal users, and there's my email. So anyhow, I want to thank Drupal Easy because they're the folks sponsoring this room. Mike Anello's and his company's doing that. Plus, the RedHen CRM module we're talking today about was developed by a guy named Lev Tispin. He and his partners are a company called ThinkShout. I believe they're out on the West Coast. And they've actually developed quite a few modules that all kind of work together. We're going to be talking about a lot of them today. What is a CRM? CRM is customer relation, contact relation. Basically, I've got people out there I want to keep track of. Now, the cool thing about this is we can keep track of anonymous users, which Drupal doesn't do very well. You have 1,000 people come in, they're all listed as anonymous. The CRMs allow us to expand that and track non-users. Plus, it allows us to take some of those non-users and make them users. So, another thing it should be doing is you can use the CRMs to do Salesforce or sales tracking. There's a module, strangely enough, that we can put on top of RedHen that connects us into a thing called, I think it's Salesforce. We're going to get to it. I forget the name of it. We'll be there in a few minutes. So, we want our CRMs to track our users, track the relationship between them, and it'd be nice if they could register some events and track participation in different things that are going on around our site. There's quite a few CRM modules out there. There's RedHen, Civvy CRM, CRM Core. Debut RedHen is just kind of a modification of the standard RedHen. That there's also Salesforce and Sugar CRM. And if you go into web forms, there's a few more. So, I don't want to talk about the web form stuff. Let's talk about some of the other more, well, not web form ones. There's CRM Core. And actually, this CRM Core and RedHen are very similar to each other. They're kind of, they work together. Some modules will interact with each other, but not everything. CRM Core's got about 147 sites. The thing I didn't like about them is I'm doing some membership stuff, and they don't have a membership renewal expiration where you can put a start date and expiration date, where they just automatically expire. So, how you doing? So, Civvy CRM, the issue with Civvy CRM is this actually integrates Drupal with a third-party product called Civvy CRM. And it just makes it hard to work with. If you're going to use it out of the box, not make any changes, it works fine. If you want to start making changes, it gets very, very complicated very, very quickly. You've got the Drupal APIs and you got the Civvy CRM API. So you're going to be doing dual, you got to work with both of them. You got dual APIs, you got two different databases to work with, you got theming systems. It just, you need an awful lot of experience, a lot of knowledge to go in there and modify Civvy CRM. So, Sugar CRM is also good, but it's just kind of a bigger project, more of a, for the big guys, the enterprise level stuff. The CRM Core and RedHen are pure Drupal. They're Drupal, they're Drupal through and through. They're not integrated into a third party. So all you got to do, you've got your familiar tools, your familiar interfaces, your everything is straight Drupal. So if you've already taught your people how to use a Drupal site, teaching them how to use RedHen is easy because it's all the same. It's kind of one of the philosophies behind Windows is everything is supposed to go along and be the same to reduce training costs. So well, not worked out that way, it's different. Okay, so what the RedHen architecture people, designers wanted to do was keep it lean and have a very stable platform. So as a result, they don't have it based on a whole lot of other modules. They've kept it, their dependencies very, very small. It'll play well with the other stuff, but it's not dependent upon them. It doesn't depend upon views, it doesn't depend upon rules. I think there's only 3 modules it's dependent upon, and we'll get to that in a minute. But one of the things that RedHen excels at is association management, such as you have the Drupal Association, they have member organizations under that, such as the different companies, and under that you have staff, volunteers, whatever. And that's really what the RedHen projects aim more so at that. It could be, you can go ahead and integrate into Salesforce if you want to go more the sales side, but the RedHen is more designed for association management. They also have, they integrate in with the event registration, which strangely enough was written by Think Shout, and they also integrate with Drupal Commerce, so if you want to sell tickets to your events, you can integrate that into Drupal Commerce. Here's their only dependencies. Relationship, or relation, which is different from relationship. The entity API, and it uses messages, but only if you're going to use the activity module, which we'll talk about in a few minutes. So it's a very independent process. They don't have to worry about other modules changing out from under them and causing problems. Which CRM is best? I don't know. You know, it's like, he likes the Apple, I'm Windows, he uses Linux. We have the old shoving the for argument. They all have their pros and cons. Find the one that works for you and use it. CRM Core and Drupal RedHen, like I said, are all pure Drupal, and they require the Drupal knowledge to use it, to modify it if you want to go in and customize. Both of them have hooks where you can go in there and extend their software. I'm working on the reason I got involved with this is I'm working on a project for Sons of Ambex. Right now, they have 23,000 members. Everything is done by paper. Everything is done by paper. And so we're going to try to bring them into the 21st century. And our goal is to get everything processed online. Membership renewals, change of address, all that stuff. Hence my interest in what we're doing here. We're going to be adding membership management, payment tracking, all that stuff that comes with the membership. It's going to be put on the site. So, the RedHen family is a big family. It's got children, it's got aunts and uncles, first cousins. It's a big family. One of the children, and what I mean by children, the sub-modules, is we got the activity modules, which we'll be talking about in a few minutes. Contacts allows us to manage contacts. Engagement scoring, what that is that's kind of, you guys ever been on forums where if you interact, you get points for answering questions, you get a couple points for asking questions. The more questions you answer, the more points you get. That's kind of what engagements are. And there's a couple fields that RedHen has that are unique to it. We're going to talk about those. Its notes different than just putting a notes tab on an entity, on something. The notes are actually, think of them as transaction notes. Every time I post a note, I don't go into my notepad for this client and add something. I actually go and create a new entry. So I have all my notes of what's going on. Think of this as a diary system where it shows my dates I posted in the notes. Plus you can score each note. So if he's done, so if you have a volunteer and he participated in something, you can note that and then give him a score, and that ties back into the engagement scoring. Organizations, we're going to talk about those, and organizations groups. It's kind of like a mini organic group, and what they wanted to do was create a way for publish private content for that group. And we have registration and RedHen relation. And this is now, as far as the aunts and uncles, We got the membership module. That's a separate, all those other ones we just talked about, those are sub-modules within RedHen. The RedHen membership is a module you bolt or you attach on. You got entity registration. I don't know if any of you have used that. You got the Salesforce suite where if you want an interface with Salesforce, Salesforce is a third-party CRM. RedHen also wrote the Salesforce suite, so it ties directly in and allows you to integrate out there. It also integrates with MailChimp, and there's a product called Mandrill. Mandrill is a transactional email system that kind of tracks whether or not people got stuff. Also, it uses the poultry theme if you so choose to. It's a, what do they call it? It's a responsive fluid. Can anybody tell me the difference between fluid and fixed and responsive? Fixed means when you design your web page, you've got so many pixels for this, so many pixels for this, so many pixels for this. Fluid means 80%'s here, 10%'s here, 10%'s there. So as the screen goes up and down, it can adjust. And then responsive is designed for your different sizes. And that's what the poultry theme is. And poultry theme is built upon the Zen, so if you just download poultry and enable it, it doesn't work too well. You gotta download Zen too. There's also the RedHen demo, which we're gonna look at. Some cousins, their relationship or relation module. This is kind of cool because it sets up a two-way relationship goes, I can relate, I'm in this thing here, I'm in this node and I want to relate to this entity. Well, relation sets up a two-way entity, so this guy knows about him and this guy over here knows about the other one. But that's a whole another session in and of itself. Integrates in with views and rules, and RedHen, they've just taken the RedHen and kind of packaged it a little bit differently. What I don't like about them is RedHen starts off with 3 dependencies. When you use the Debut RedHen, I think there's about 8 or 10, I forget, but there's a whole long list of dependencies. The more dependencies you have means if they change and yours and RedHen doesn't, you're kind of screwed. So, okay, plus it interfaces in with Drupal Commerce. And if you want, you can set up events and you can sell tickets to your events. You don't have to, the registration is what does the ticketing. And you can either choose charge or not charge. It also interfaces with web forms, plus it plays well with all the other field modules out there and other entity-based modules. This is all, RedHen's all entity-based. One issue with RedHen that it's just the process of maturing is if you need to load a whole bunch of data into it, you got a problem because feeds, which is a nice easy way of loading data, only works with core entity types. It doesn't look at all the other types. So you end up using migrate, or is it, yeah, I think it's, is it migrate?
Yeah, migrate will bring in data from other sources.
Yeah, it's migrate. So you got to go back to that. It's just a little bit harder to use migrate than it is feeds. Okay, so we're going to be looking at the RedHen module and its direct children because there's just not enough time to look at everything. So, everybody knows what entity types, bundles, fields, and entities are, correct? Yes, no?
Yes.
Okay, cool. So we won't go through those. Okay. They have 2 main entity types within RedHen, and that's the organization and the context. The cool thing about these is each one of these you can go through and add whatever fields you want to them. And the other thing about, we talked about relation, that's also an entity type, and you can add fields to the relation. So when you connect 2 pieces together, you can add in metadata about that relationship. Okay, so. Oh, this is kind of cool. You can have, we talked about, one of the big things about the CRMs is they don't, or about Drupal and CRMs, is CRMs are going to allow you to attract, or to track non-users. So we talked about you have 1,000 people you want to keep track of, but they're not a user on your site. So how do you do it? This is how you do it. You bring in a CRM. Now the other cool thing is, let's say of those 1,000 users, our goal is to eventually get them into our site and get them involved, contributing, whatever. You can then turn a RedHen contact into a site user, and you can manage them all from within RedHen. You can either associate with an existing account or you can create a new account. We can keep track of the connections between our contacts and other contacts, or the organization of contacts. Keep track between organizations and other organizations. So, the entity notes, or RedHen notes. You can have, besides just having a note, you can also add other fields to it. So if you want to track, it already tracks the date you entered it, but if you wanted to track, I don't know, like have a tickler file, like if I'm supposed to have a follow-up date on this, you can go ahead and add that to your note. So if this person came in here, did this, and you're supposed to do something 2 days from now, you can put that next date or review date field into your note. Okay. So we're not going to talk a whole lot about RedHen groups. Memberships is pretty interesting. I'm not sure we're going to have time to deal with it, but we will see. But it's another custom entity type, and like I said, the big thing about this, at least for my purposes, was the new and renewal dates. And that new and renewal date, that also interfaces back into Drupal Commerce so that you can get your members to pay for their renewal, their dues, via the website. Okay. So I was planning on setting up like a Drupal association thing, but I wanted you, when you guys left here, I wanted you to be able to go and look at something to rebuild in case, like for me it works if I could see something in action. So what we're going to do is we're going to go through the RedHen demo distribution so that if you want to go back later, here's the notes, here's the distribution, here's how you get from one to the other. So first thing you do is you create your database, download the distribution, get it up and running. So, that's the, if you want to use their responsive theme, go ahead and download it. You don't have to. You can use just the straight standard Bartik in, what is it, 7. But if you do download Poultry, don't forget to download Zen, and don't forget to disable Bartik when you're done. So, okay. When you spin up your site, you're going to see you're going to have a new RedHen and a new navigation thing over here. RedHen automatically installs the new menu bar up there. And that's done, I use admin menus instead of just a straight toolbar. And the other thing, once you activate everything, it's going to come up here and want you to rebuild your permissions, so go ahead and do that. I missed that. Oh. And then the dashboard, if you click the CRM dashboard here, that's what you get. And if you just click, if you just click RedHen, that's what you get. They both take you here. So if you want to go down to your settings, this is kind of like your configuration. Nothing really a whole lot exciting there. This has the way RedHen connects your contacts and your users is through the email. That's the only way it has right now. So it's going to sync the two based upon the email. So what you can do is if you check this box, instead of now having to maintain 2 emails, it just maintains 1. So it kind of keeps those in sync for you. Other than that, really nothing exciting. Oh. If you're doing the memberships, you can make them active and inactive on their effective and expiration dates. So let's take a look about the structures. We have the contact types, engagement scores, notes, organization types. Nothing really exciting here. You go through the screens. It's pretty much straight Drupal. If you want, you get to define your own contact types. These are what just comes with it. volunteer and staff, and you have your normal Drupal fields. Really exciting. In this particular case, they have their name, email, address, and when they're available. That's for the volunteer. Engagement scores, this is basically all it is. You give the engagement score, it's an arbitrary name, you guys decide what it is, you know, there's really nothing significant about it. When you get to the different spots where it's going to ask you, it's a drop-down box where you can assign whatever name you give it. And you give it the scores, and the scores do appear, they'll be displayed upon the contact, so you'll know what their scores are. Notes, again, you can go here and manage your own fields, you can add whatever fields you want. And same thing with organization types. You just get to define them and add whatever information you want. Nothing really exciting. They made it real easy to get to this page. You can get to it either off the CMR or off the navigation menu, off the structure RedHen menu, or the RedHen. It was just, I don't know why they did that, but they made it easy. So let's talk about contacts. To go add a new contact, you can either click on the the navigation menu or the contact, either one gets you the same place. A lot of things within RedHen you can click on multiple places to get to the same place. So if you want to add a contact, you can go up here and that doesn't add. Otherwise you can filter down here. Now again, these things that are in blue, you can sort by them. So if you want to sort by type or first name, last name, or email, you can go ahead and sort that. You can also, they have a built-in filter. Back up, okay. So if you do choose add a contact, it's going to ask you what type of contact you want. And basically, these are coming from the contacts you set up in the add contact screen, or add contact type, that's where they're coming from. And then you choose the one, and it brings you up the screen. This is the contact filter. If you go back here, if you click the filter, you get everything on the screen. Now, this is pretty cool because what happens here is as you add fields to your contact type, let's say you add 5, 6 fields, whatever they are, every single one of those fields automatically appear on this filter. So you can search by anything that you're entering data for, you can search by that. And that's just automatic, you don't have to do anything for that. Okay, so I put a volunteer in there, and we noticed we got something a little bit different. I didn't show the ad screen because it's just a normal entry screen, nothing really exciting about it. But once you install RedHen, you get a whole bunch of these tabs and sub-tabs. Straight edit, that just takes you out to edit that entity. The Drupal user, that's actually going to enable us to set up a user. I didn't look what the archive does. Connections, that allows us to connect this contact to some other organization. If we go here in membership, controls our membership. The engagements, we talked about that engagement scoring. This shows all of its points. And if we want to go register somebody, we can keep track of his registrations, what's going on. List all the things he's registered for here. Notes, that's the note thing, we'll take a look at that in a few minutes. And then if you look at the activity, it shows you everything that's going on with that person. Also, his email, you can either specify for bulk mailing or primary. I've not had I'm guessing this is in integration with MailChimp, but I've really not had a chance to play with that. Okay, so let's take a look at the Drupal user. Basically, if you click on the Drupal user, it's going to say, do I want to connect this to an existing or a new one? I chose new, and it just brings you to a user screen. You create a new user logon for him. Pretty simple. Now he's a user. And by user, I'm now authenticated users, a site user. Okay. This is if you want to go ahead and add a note on him, you specify the type of note. That's a taxonomy, I believe, and that's from your engagement scores that you set up. And you can, just a text box where you type stuff. And it shows all those notes. So the more notes you add, it's going to show each individual note. So that's why I'm saying you can use this kind of a diary system. Keep track of what that person's been involved in. Especially for volunteers, you can keep track of everything all the events he's helped out with, whatever he's done. Okay, this is the engagement. So, and it shows you his scores here, and of course you can go, since this integrates with views, you can go out there and keep track, total up. So if you're keeping track of like your volunteers by how active they've been, you can go ahead and do your sort, total up the scores for each one of these people, and then rank them by that.
Very cool.
So, and again, you guys decide the value, you guys decide the names. You can also tie the engagement stuff into, if they respond to comments, you get so much for posting an article, you get so much for putting a comment in, you can integrate it with the rules and a lot of that other stuff. So, now we've set up our people, now let's set up our organizations. So this one is set for the animal shelter. The distribution was set up for a fake animal association. So that's why we're going with this theme. And if you look, it has very similar tabs. So we just go in there and just set one up, nothing really exciting, just again, your normal data entry screen. And we can go ahead and add a connection. So you have to set up your contacts, you have to set up your organization. Now we have both set up, we're going to connect the two. So we go back to Cliff, click on his connections, add a connection, and it's not a drop-down box, it's you have to fill it in. So you type in the first three, a couple letters, and it goes out there and finds the organization for you. Tell him you're affiliated, whatever his role is. Again, these roles you get to set up. I think it's I don't remember if it was a list or a taxonomy. I think it's a list. Okay.
Do you know what it's using to make that connection?
Where?
When you hit add connection, is that entity references? When you're hitting an add connection?
Relation.
Relation, okay.
Yeah, that's the relation. That's the relation module. Okay.
How many organizations can a person be connected to? Just one, or can it be multiple?
How many do you want? Multiple.
Maybe multiple.
Yeah. You can connect people to people to organizations, yes.
Wonderful.
I've not played with it. That's what I've read. So there is a few undocumented features as I went through this. So I've read they can have multiple. I haven't tested that yet. From the way the documentation reads, I believe they can. Okay, because you can come back. Yeah, I don't know, I haven't tested. But the way this is built up, I believe you just keep adding connections. So, okay, again, let's see. So, go back to add the organization, and we clicked on connections, and now we see we got multiple people. I created, Cliff was part of the association, or part of the connection, and Amy Pollen was part of the connection. And Cliff's a volunteer, and Amy's a staff member. And I want to make a primary contact, someone who's responsible, so you can come over here and click on a person and set them as the primary contact. And that's exposed to views and stuff. So if you want to get a list of just all your primary contacts and publish a report, you can now do that. You can go out here and find Amy's phone number and all those wonderful things. I believe that's exposed. It's also exposed to rules too, so you can do stuff with that. So yeah, so once you set her as primary, okay. Now, we're going to go ahead and we're going to register and create an event. And again, just go to add events. Events, another, this is through the registration module, I believe. It is registration, yes. And you go through and add an event. Again, just your basic data entry screen. You can add whatever fields you want to this. And then we're going to go and manage our settings. You can specify out the capacity, the opening date, and there's a whole bunch of other stuff you can fill for that. Now at this point, this is one of the undocumented features I ran across. So that's why I say it. The other thing I found is that supposedly you can register a, what did I just do? Oh, okay. Supposedly you can register yourself, you can register another user, and you're supposed to be able to register a different contact. Well, I registered the same contact 3 times and he never showed up, so that piece didn't work. Yes?
Registration just went through some changes recently, so those undocumented features probably have something to do with registration, because they had a 36 day one that you had to use until they finally updated it to the good one. So that's probably what you're running across there.
Yeah, this is just running out of the this is the RedHen distribution.
Registration.
Pardon?
Entity registration.
Yeah. No, this is registration. Is the registration based upon entity? I didn't think it was based upon entity registration.
Well,
I'm not sure. I got to go back and look upon the bed.
Anyway, their registrations had some issues.
Changes. Okay.
I just thought it was entity registration.
Yeah, you're supposed to be able to register yourself, another user, and another contact. The other contact didn't work. Okay. So, yeah, that's why I registered these 2 first. They didn't work. So I had to go register a user, and then that worked. But anyhow, under your event, you can see all your people who got registered. And the other cool thing is, if you want to email somebody, if you click on this, it pops up an email screen. If you click on this, email registrants, it emails it to everybody who's registered.
Wow.
So that makes it kind of nice. So you can either email the individuals or everybody. Okay. And if we come back over to Amy Pollen, and click on her registration tab, we find out she's registered for this. Now I should have been able to go over to Cliff's and check out his, but that didn't quite work. Okay, we talked about this. Yeah, I've spent so much time on the other stuff, I didn't get a chance to really get into the membership side. But that's my next thing I'm working on. But the big thing there is that you can change, you can assign the Drupal roles to a member, and that actually goes in there and changes his authority on the site. Now there's some issues with that. From what I've read, you can have a person who comes in, has a volunteer, eventually becomes a staff member, and then maybe moves up. It doesn't handle those changes very well. From what I've been reading, there was a thread I just got into the other day, and I didn't get a chance to read it. It was, what you have to do is disable one contact and recreate a new contact with a new relationship.
Ew.
Yeah, I know. So I gotta go back. But that was a thread that was 8 months old, so I don't know if they've addressed it, because like he said, there's a new patch that just came out, or a new release just came out April 2nd. So I've not had a chance to play with that yet. Okay, so actually that went a lot quicker. I had 100 slides. I was expecting it to go take longer. So, questions, comments?
Now I understand why every time I said, ooh, that sounds like organic groups, you were going, no, no, no. Because it basically has its own sort of mini
It's got its own mini organic.
Organic groups if all you need is.
Correct.
I love that. That's great.
Yes. The one thing that I'm working on I haven't seen yet is, I don't know if the security applies just to that group. So that, I know you can publish content. They have a RedHen organization group, and the purpose of that is that you can publish content to just that organization's group. So they have private content for that group versus this group over here.
Which would take care of a lot of the things that you would otherwise need like organic groups for, but this is like more compact and more integrated.
Yeah, I'm looking more for a security solution so that only people in this group can only see the information in that group. Because
organic groups does that, but if you don't need the big giant over,
Right. Well, I don't want people in this organization should see this membership. I don't want other. I've got a multi-tier structure, so the state needs to be able to see everybody in their area, and then the squadrons underneath the state. So the squadrons should just see their stuff. So I got to play with that some more.
So you said you were working on documentation for this.
Yes.
Where does that exist?
It exists. I'm trying to get the guys to link it to their site. If you go, let's see. Let's see. If you type in Drupal RedHen, and I think it's this, one, two, third one down underneath it is installing the RedHen module. Starting from here. Oh, no, RedHen introduction. So this is going to go, basically my goal is to provide a step-by-step instructions on how to set it up. So that my fun experience for the last couple of weeks doesn't have to be repeated by other people that just go down this checklist. And I've got an email, I'm sorry. I gotta change my screen here. There we go. Yes, so it starts there with the introduction, and basically he's going to go through each one of those modules we talked about, the sub-modules. It's going to go through the membership module. It's going to have ties into everything else. It's part of the Drupal site building book. So it's under RedHen CRM Introductions. You get one.
Now, is this what you wrote, or is this is what
I
you're
am.
writing?
This is a consolidation of what a podcast, videocast, blog entries, README text, articles, comments, issues. Basically, it's kind of a diary of.
But this is your contribution. This
Yes.
is your. Oh, that's
Yes.
very cool. Then.
Yes. So like I said, I've been searching everywhere for this stuff. And
Mr. Tech Writer. Cool.
so yes, I'm trying to consolidate this all in one place. What was your question? Event? Well, I've got an email. Pardon?
But you also have another thing then, installing the RedHen module.
Well, if you look down at the bottom of this page, this is the introduction. Down at the bottom of the page, it links to installing, how to configure. We're going to talk about the migrate fees when I get to that, frequently asked questions. We're going to go through and document each of the types, how to set them up, how to connect everything. just try to make life simple for others. And hopefully, eventually, it will replace or
Yeah, because I think that just goes to the README file.
yeah, basically. Yeah, so I'm working and trying to get in touch with these guys so that you don't get that.
Ew.
Yeah. Plus, like I said, it gets into a lot of the documentations about why RedHen CM versus all the others, and
Should I fix this typo?
which one's that? Sure, go ahead. If there's a typo, fix it. Yeah, right now, my philosophy when I write the documentation is get it written, then go back and clean it up. It's better to have typos in your documentation than no documentation at all.
You got a RedHen.
Pardon?
RedHen.
That's close enough.
It's a tough one.
We knew what he meant.
Pardon?
I said, we knew what they meant.
Yeah.
So
Yes, sir.
I got a question about doing some little bit of automation of some of this stuff so that if somebody were to come to the site and say fill out a form to sign up for a newsletter, would you have to use rules then to take that simple form information and convert it into a part of the CRM? I mean, I presume that it
No,
is done, but
no,
does it have to be
no,
used to do it?
because you can expose your contact page and just have them fill in the contact page.
No, I don't want to do that. I want to have them just fill out email address and name so that that's all they have to give in order to sign up for a newsletter.
I don't know. I've not done that.
Okay.
I can find out though. It's a good question.
I'm trying to do some basic marketing automation.
So what you want to do is you want to expose just a simple screen that asks for name and email, and feed that in. I will tell you this. I'm positive there is a way to do that because that's what this whole thing is built for.
Yeah. That's what I'm thinking. I downloaded the demo and unfortunately I didn't have much time to play with it, so I'm glad you did this session. The other thing that I was wondering about was you mentioned earlier that it will track anonymous users
Through the contacts.
Okay.
So,
Can you explain that a little more?
Well, your contacts, okay, the question is I made the statement that it tracks anonymous users. And the way it does that is it treats a contact.
Well,
You
so
can- go
there's
ahead.
some terminology.
Yes, go ahead.
It doesn't track an anonymous user that just goes to the website.
That is correct.
You have to give up something in order to be able to.
I
Yes.
think what he's saying is,
Just like what you just said, you got to give me a name
Right.
and an email address, but you don't have to sign up as a user.
Okay, right, okay.
Yes.
So,
you can be a member of the organization and be tracked, but you're not necessarily a Drupal user.
So
That is correct.
Let me ask this in a scenario form of the question. If somebody goes to the site and they're poking around, they click on this link and they look at this page and they do this page, and then eventually got around to filling out a form, would you have a record of all the things that they did before they did the form, or would you only have a record of after they filled out the form?
After they filled out the form. Because until then, they're just an anonymous user. You have no idea who they are.
Well, the system knows by IP address, but there's no way of connecting the two?
There's no way to connect the IP address because the IP address at my house, unless you have a static IP address, it gets renewed. And so today I might have this IP address. Tomorrow, if my lease
I
expires,
guess I was thinking in terms of a session and not
Yeah.
okay.
multiple visits.
There are ways to get the session IP address, but RedHen, as far as I know, does not look at that.
Okay.
The other thing I and I could be wrong in this, but basically, I think, and I'm making this as an assumption, he's talking about tracking activity as an anonymous user. I'm assuming you're talking about the actions that they're doing as a contact.
Well, yes.
So, for example, if you're a contact and you, I don't know, you add a piece of, well, I guess you couldn't add a piece of content, but if you're a contact and you're doing something within the installation, you can track that. But I don't believe he's talking about tracking the contact's actions on the web page. It's just a general user. Does that make sense?
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, but that's actually what I want to know. I want to know how somebody interacted with my site.
Yeah. So
I want to know.
So your question is no. You know what I mean? Like.
Because I'll have lots of different kinds of content, and I want to know where did they gravitate toward, so that I will know a little bit about them. So that if I contact them and say, "Can I help you?" I already know a lot of what they're looking for.
He's talking about tracking the activities as a contact.
Yes.
As a contact.
Yes. Thank you for reminding me. We talked about the activity tab here. This is a sample of what activity is tracking. You can add other activity types that are tracked.
Right.
But these are system things that happen. This doesn't track, I viewed that page and I viewed that page. They did something, that's what gets tracked, I believe. But he's got to be a contact. So yes, he's got to be identified, or that person has to be identified somehow. He has to be a contact.
If he filled out a request for signing up for the newsletter, and then later filled out a request to download an ebook or a PDF file or something like that, filled out another form of some kind, that's what you'd be tracking.
Yes, that is correct. But yes, he's an anonymous user in the respect that he's not an authenticated user. Mm-hmm. But the flip side of that, he's not anonymous because
you've got information.
You have his name and his email address. So you're right, it is a terminology. You can't just track upon his IP address and watch what's going on. You can do that, but that requires some programming because that is exposed. They were talking about getting rid of some of that, of not exposing some of that information because of the privacy issues. I remember I was reading a thread for just that question. In the old web forms, you used to be able to track his IP address, his web browser, a whole bunch of other stuff. Mm-hmm. And they stopped, I believe, in web form 4. Don't believe you can get to that information because it was privacy issues.
You can use, that's what Google Analytics set up a goal funnel. And then at the end of that goal funnel, you can actually set up a rule to make a call to the Google Analytics API and add that user's name into the end of the goal. Okay. So you can actually go back and see all the steps they took to get to that form.
Okay. Yeah, but it kind of takes it out of my site, but it's still, yeah, I think that would help.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay. Well, I appreciate you being here. Thank you very much.
Good job.
And I guess all the slides will be up on the site, I guess. Thank you.